Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to have you with us at this webinar. This webinar is a part of Media Freedom Rapid Response, MFR, which is a Europe-wide mechanism established to track, monitor, and respond to threats to media freedom and the safety of journalists. It is funded by the European Commission and implemented by a consortium of 6 organizations, European Center for Press and Media Freedom, which is the leader of the consortium, and FPU, Article 19 IPI, EFJ, and OPCT. You can find more information about our work on our website, mfr.eu. My name is Alina Toropova. I'm managing the Journalist in Residence program at the European Center for Press and Media European Center for Press and Media Freedom, and it's a temporary location and protection program for journalists at risk. This session will explore the pressing issue of harassment and violence targeting women journalists, particularly in high-risk and politically sensitive environments like Ukraine and Turkey. We will look into the unique challenges that women journalists are facing both online and offline. Our experts will provide insights into the risks women journalists encounter, share best practices for safety and self-protection, and offer resources available to support them. This webinar aims to inform the audience about the issue and empower women journalists with practical strategies to safeguard their well-being and ensure a safer environment for reporting. Please leave your questions in the chat. We will get back to that in the very end of our webinar and ask these questions to our experts. And we are planning to spend the next hour together. Now I would like to proceed and introduce our wonderful experts. I will start with Elisabeth Cantiniche. Elisabeth has been the executive director of the ACAS Alliance since 2016. Elisabeth has nearly 20 years experience working on journalist safety issues. Prior to joining ACAS Alliance, she was head of programs at the Rory Peck Trust in London. She also co-founded the Journalists in Distress Network and led more than a dozen journalist safety projects worldwide. Elisabeth has also worked as a freelance documentary producer, radio journalist, and writer. Gülfem Karataş, she's working as a Turkish Journalist Association, TJS, as an assistant and member of the TJS Women and LGBTQI+ Committee. She has been active in the media sector since 2008 and worked for IMC TV as a reporter, where she covered women and LGBTQI+ rights for 5 years. And Elizabeth Kuzmenka is the founder and head of the Women in Media NGO, a Ukrainian network of women journalists that was launched in 2019. Lisa is also one of the 15 members of the Commission on Journalism Ethics, acting as a press counsel in Ukraine. And from 2016 to 2019, she worked for Hramatsky Radio. Lisa is also national consultant for media and gender projects for Council of Europe in Ukraine, the OSCE project coordinator in Ukraine, UNDP, and international media support. Thanks all of you for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. And I would like to dive in right away with my first question to Elisabeth. As an expert who has been working on safety issues for years, can you describe at which point gender becomes a relevant aspect in the global issue of journalist safety? And could you specify the special threats that journalist women are facing?
Thank you so much, Alina, for that introduction. And it's a pleasure to be sharing screen today with Gülfem and Lisa. Thank you so much for having me. Let me start by saying that attacks against all journalists have increased over the last few years, and that journalists are working in more and more complex environments where physical, legal, digital, and psychosocial aspects are interacting in ways that I think only in recent years we've started seeing and become aware and understand. So this is already a vulnerable profession, and I'm not talking just about those that are covering war and conflict, which is of course a very obvious hostile environment, but anyone covering sensitive issues, human rights abuses, corruptions, election, the environment, whatever they are vulnerable. Then on top of that, you have vulnerable populations such as freelance and under-resourced local journalists, which is the focus of the work of the ACOS Alliance, and definitely women and non-binary journalists. And what happens there is that on one hand, women face specific threats based on their gender, and on top of that, in disproportionate numbers. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that there is a certain point in time that these become more relevant. Although, of course, I think that there is of course, a before and after social media and online harassment. But what we've seen over the last decades is that more women are entering our profession, while targeted threats and attacks have gradually increased to what we see today. It's a record high. Why? Well, these attacks are very effective. Lack of safety results in censorship. Many are leaving the profession, and those that choose to stay are exposed to high levels of stress and trauma. And especially, and I want to highlight these, especially when there is lack of institutional support. On the positive side, I also need to see, I want to highlight two things, right? There are more efforts than ever before to address the specific challenges that journalists, women are facing. So we have dedicated projects and initiatives, some of them with a focus on gender, and some of them just with that awareness built in, which I think is very important. And we also see organizations, alliances, alliances and networks being created with that purpose. I will share some of the links in the chat because honestly, there are so many organizations out there doing great work, like IWMF. There are so many. And we've also seen, parallel to these, in the last few years, many reports, surveys, publications are documenting, exposing, and raising the awareness that this deserves. And I want to share some figures with you all. In 2021, UNESCO conducted a global survey led by Julie Posetti on online harassment. And this is, I'm just going to mention three things because the report is very thorough, and today we're still referring to it. Nearly 3 in 4 women respondents to that survey, and that's 73%, experience online violence in the course of their work. 25% receive threats of sexual abuse. And 1 in 5 women respondents, that's 20%, said they have been attacked or abused offline in incidents initiated online, which is something that, of course, we've seen increasingly. That was 2021, but we know that attacks online have only intensified since the publication of that study, and so have online attacks. Also, last year, a report by Women in Journalism in the US found that 75% had experienced a threat to their safety. And the last data that I want to give, in March, RSF published data that showed that although women represented only 50% of all the detentions of journalists, they were handed more than 50% of the longest prison sentences. I will share the links in the chat for those reports for any of you that want to kind of like dive in. There is so much more there. But certainly data is crucial, and it has helped us to understand, you know, the scope, the magnitude of what we're facing. And it provides evidence that we're not over emotional about this, but this is real. The gender-driven detentions and deportations and sexual violence and online abuse is very, very real, that we are not exaggerating when we say that there's a global crackdown on women in journalism and that it's intensifying. So the problem is very real, but let me conclude with, raising some solutions. This is a little bit of an obsession for me because we're very focused on practical solutions. Of course, there is the external environment that we live in, the hostilities that we experience because of the context that we are. But then there are some internal dimensions to the work that we do. And that's where ACOS is investing. And I want to mention 3. 1, preventive safety measures, and that includes emergency plans. Identity and profile informed approaches. And I would love to talk a little bit more later on if we have time. And then institutional backup. This is so important, that institutional backup. I will come back to this if you want me to. I'm going to leave it there. I will bring more links to the chat, because as you were mentioning as well, Alina, there are many resources out there, and that's kind of like on the positive side. There's been kind of like an increased response to the situation that we're living. Thank you.
Thanks, Elizabeth. We will get back to the topic, hopefully. Gülfem, I would like to give the word to you. You've been working on a topic of women and LGBTQI rights in safety in Turkey. And would you like to share your observations on specific threats that women face in Turkey, and maybe also share some protection measures that there are? And I know you'll be sharing a presentation with us. I will ask our technical assistant to help us with that.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this meeting. I'm very excited about that. Sorry for that. Today I want to talk about women journalist situation in Turkey. What's going on, how is going on, and what kind of violence we live with. Change, please. I'm thinking of this is world matter. It's not just Turkey's problem. We expose physical, psychological, sexual, and digital online violence and mobbing. These men are sometimes husband, employer, police, or no-name a man. But today I won't explain other violences. I want to talk about digital online violence, harassment, because especially we can prove or show physical or sexual violence, but digital violence is not provable, or there is no place in law, especially in Turkey. Change, please. In Turkey, journalists have to use social media and other countries, of course, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. But I separate Twitter and other platform. You can close Facebook or Instagram profile, but Twitter is new source now. That's why it has to be public. Journalists in Turkey are using their news disseminated. Freelancer journalists don't have their newsroom or website. They have to use Twitter, or now they use YouTube for that. As you know, if you want to affect the people or you want to show truth, you have to be a name as a journalist. Do you understand what I mean? If you want to permanent in the profession, you have to use it. Change, please. But when you are permanent in the profession, you can be target. Journalists are a target in Turkey all the time. But if you are a woman journalist, things change a bit. Change, please. When we talk about with women journalists, they said, especially the men who attacked, to your physical appearance or sexuality. But you are a man journalist, they attack to his opinion. It shows that women journalists underestimated by the men. Change, please. We don't agree with this opinion. They know the woman journalist is right, and he doesn't like her opinion. Online violence turns into physical violence, sometimes talking or mansplaining. He knows that it's not included in law. There will be nothing, just men issues. Change, please. Because of same reasons, the woman journalist doesn't want to make a complaint. You can see here their sentences. For example, I didn't report the police because I don't believe to happen anything. I'm afraid to happen something physically. That's why I left my friend for a while. I'm afraid to happen something to me. That's why I self-censor. Some women journalists said have panic attack because of that. Sometimes they said, I believe that I'm schizophrenic. I feel like that. Change, please. What are we doing as the union? Change, please. First of all, we have a committee, TGS Women and LGBT Committee, since 2013. Change, please. We did sometimes acute time, press release, meeting, case observation. It can be for journalists in prison, sometimes it can be, and we can meet for shared experience. Some of them is close meeting because it has to be relaxed in the meeting. Change, please. We believe that its most important thing is solidarity. We have to keep in touch other. Change, please. And we choose the management in the union are 50% women at least. It's very important. It means the women issues draw attention by women. I'm sorry, guys. But in this way, we can focus women issues more than. Change, please. Of course, this is not enough. We put international convention in our collective agreement. This agreement is about the gender equality. Change, please. We did social campaign about ILO 190 convention importance. We put that every agreement, collective agreement. Change, please, and start the video. Close the yeah. Lastly, this video is about what's important ILO convention. We did video for any woman journalist. Almost 10 women journalists include this video, say something about the importance of convention. I'm sorry, it's Turkish. There is no subtitle because this convention includes all the violence and all the time and anywhere. It's most important thing, and we focus on this convention, our union. Thank you, listen to me.
Thank you a lot, Irfan, and thanks a lot for your work in Turkey. I would like to proceed to Lisa. Lisa, could you share your overall assessment of the situation in women media in Ukraine at the moment? And I know that Women in Media has been conducting a research about gender disinformation about Ukrainian women journalists. Could you tell us a bit about your findings?
Yes, thank you so much. I hope I have 10 minutes because everyone was so specific, but still. Let me say thank you for organizing this important event. I believe that it is really important for us as women journalists to share our own experience, and we face a lot of common challenges. And also we could support each other and find the solutions to protect women journalists, both offline and online, not only in our homeland, but everywhere. So if you don't mind, let me briefly introduce Women in Media NGO. We started in 2019 with a very small group of women journalists. We worked together for Hrometsky Radio, and this was a reaction, us as female journalists, to a press conference of with former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko. And he made a very sexist remark saying in response to a women journalist, my little darling, I want to spend a day with you. So we were in complete shock with it, and created a t-shirt with a slogan, I am not your darling, and just want to launch a supporting campaign, and it was widely discussed in Ukrainian media. But then our goal was to address these gender-based challenges that women journalists face, such as overcoming sexism from politicians and editorial teams, dealing with this 20% gender pay gap in our media, also how we could balance in this journalism and motherhood during the wartime, for example. As you know, the Russian military aggression in Ukraine has been ongoing since 2014. So currently we have a network of over 1,500 women journalists, but also media managers, producers, TV hosts, and so on. And when I speak about women from our network, I also mean that among them are women with disabilities, are lesbians, are non-binaries, are ADPs, single mothers. There's journalists at the beginning of their career, and also who are over 60 years old. And also we include those who belong to ethnic communities, such as Crimea Tatar journalists, and we want to highlight and take into account their experience as well. We communicate in peer-to-peer principles format and try to provide various types of support, such as psychological, financial, law, and other assistance. And if you ask me about the current situation with the women media workers in Ukraine, I would say that in a small newsroom, one woman often has to juggle several roles, like she's a journalist, she's fundraiser, she's a counter, even she making coffee for herself and for her colleagues. And this is due to the lack of funding in the media sector of Ukraine. And our studies show that low income in the media industry and also the mobilization of men contribute to the predominance of women in Ukrainian media. So we face multiple gender-based challenges. So just a few examples from the unsuitable equipment for women's bodies, particularly bulletproof vests, to gender-based attacks on social media. And for example, in Ukraine, there is a hashtag. In Ukraine, it sounds like journalistka, but it means like journalist whore, if I pronounce it correctly. So it's used against female war journalists, which is very similar that we see like a global practice. I know that there is a hashtag prostitute, and it would be really interesting to know from Elizabeth and Wolfram about their experience with this hashtag. So, but of course, despite all our vulnerabilities, we are still strong and show it through our self-support. So one our tool, which might be useful for other countries, is organizing a self-support group for female journalists. So in this group, we sit in a circle and discuss our problem. Usually we have a main topic, and there is a woman psychologist who provide feedback and give her advice if there is a request and if needed, of course. So our experience show that these groups are very effective when we have from 10 to 15 women journalists. And for example, someone who has taken an editorial role at a young age might worry about managing it effectively. So, or how to balance work and motherhood. And we could speak openly among ourselves. There's no video recording, so the discussion is very private. And I would like to share only one simple example. One of our first participants, Sofia Kochmar, she's international media producer, and she won an Emmy Award last year for outstanding writing for the documentary film Lost Soul of Bucha. But 3 years before, she was on maternity leave with her little daughter, and she came to our very first self-support group, and the topic was balancing work and motherhood. And she says that because of this group, she stayed in profession. She explains that when you are on maternity leave, it often seems like life you once dreamed may no longer exist. In journalism, she explains, we are often judged by our texts, by some awards, by scandals, but when you are just a mother, it seems that no one interested. Of course, it's not true, but she says that no one was a friend with Sophia because she's just a mother, but everyone wants to be a friend with Sophia as a journalist. So she adds that these meetings help her a lot to get out from one-room apartment and find support. She saw that female journalists talking about the same issue. And she said that the group taught her to see herself from outside perspective, and which is very difficult to achieve in one-on-one conversation. So since 2019, we have held over 40 such groups. And of course, as a part of ECPMA project last year, we conducted a study about gender disinformation against women journalists. And we saw that Russia uses the strategy of gender disinformation in Ukraine against female journalists just to create this certain negative image of gender equality and the role of women in democratic society. And we notice this, that online violence can take a different forms, like doxing, when someone posts this telephone number or address of women in the internet, the sectoring, trolling, cyberstalking, and Elizabeth and Gulfram already told about it. So disinformation campaign use these narratives about gender roles, gender equality, and sexual orientation just to polarize public discussion and to sow panic. So, but due to a lack of attention to this issue at the Ukrainian government and from the media outlets, women who face these attacks are often left alone with their problem. So the second problem is that some women journalists don't want to report about attacks, and you said about it. They are worried that it will make them like unfit for this dangerous work. So it is hard to measure because women might not understand sometimes it well and think that it's still taboo to speak about this topic. So we saw such narratives about Ukrainian women journalists, like that leading Ukrainian women journalists can make a career only through their relationship with men, of course. Like military women correspondents are security service of Ukraine agents, they are feminists, they are prostitutes, they escort workers from Dubai, and then they are lesbians, and Ukraine is still really a homophobic country, despite all good works that we have. And I know it is from my perspective because I am an open lesbian in Ukraine. So they also say that journalists, because of their poor education, all that can do that women go to journalism just because they could anything could do just to lie. So as we can see, it is really important to create an environment and a system at every level, at the state level, the police, the newsroom, and of course the NGO, just where women journalists could identify and report facts of gender disinformation without any fear, and of course feel confident that they and like we will able to get this necessary help and support. And of course, I'm pretty sure that you know that there is a Digital Service Act as a part of European Union law. We are still waiting for implementation in Ukraine, and this act say that everything that prohibited offline must be prohibited also online. And it holds the biggest online platform such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other responsible for combating online violence against women journalists. So, but despite the fact that our current legislation is imperfect, we can do something, of course. And that is why we launched a significant 2-year project supported by the Embassy of Netherlands to create a media women risk map. And our goal is to document all cases of online violence against women journalists in Ukraine. So we started just from classifying the different types of online violence, and currently this database is under technical development, and we will share and it will be available on our website. We also want to make it in Ukrainian, but in English as well, as I say, because we have a common challenges in the world. So, and maybe just one more, if I have 1 minute, I would say about our coalition. We have this year, we created a coalition, gender equality in Ukrainian media. It was initiated by Women in Media NGO with the support from international media support and the New Democracy Fund. And the purpose of this coalition was to unite media outlets. For example, we have a Suspilne, which is a public broadcasting company in Ukraine, and we have Ukrainian Pravda, Ukrainska Pravda, which is one of the biggest media outlets in Ukraine. We have NGOs, we have state bodies such as Government Commissioner for Gender Equality and the Minister of Culture and International Policy. And we all want to be in unite way and to make as much as possible events just to highlight these issues and to speak about gender equality in Ukrainian media. Oh, I guess it's all that I want to share with you, but thank you so much for listening. And it was really my pleasure to hear from Elizabeth and Wolfram. It's really nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Lisa, thank you so much for such a comprehensive and full picture. Maybe there are any reactions on what Lisa presented or any other presentations before.
Yeah, I wanted to comment. I mean, it's amazing to hear all the work that you guys are doing. Lisa, you caught me when you talk about these mom, but also the self-support group, you call them, right? And this is so important. Peer support is so important because it's so easy to get isolated into and be caught into what's happening, normalizing it, or even kind of like make yourself like, this is my fault, I've done something wrong, or right? And when you are in that peer support, that it breaks all those, we can be our worst enemies. So it's part of, I think it's part of solutions, right? How we can build strong networks. Seems like you're already doing this in a magic way. I would love even to hear more. But this is something that we understand that it's really, really important when we talk about vulnerable, populations, whether it's women, whether it's freelance journalists, under-resourced, local journalists, etc. It's something that we're going to dedicate some time this year. We have the ACOS Alliance Safety Coordination meeting coming up in October, and we are always dedicating time to psychological safety. I'm going to have a dedicated time to really dive into peer support, because we understand this is something that it's proven very, very effective. And one call that I would do for those that join us today is reach out to the networks that are out there. Who is close to you, geographically, that, and it doesn't really matter how big, how small that group is, but reach out, don't stay at home. Don't kind of like go into that, sort of spiral, break that by reaching out, asking for support each other. There are many, as I was saying, this is one of the positive things that we've seen, an outcome that we've seen is that increased number of all these projects that are bringing so much positivity in our community. So yeah, again, encouraging everybody that is listening to reach out to all these groups, associations, groups, networks, informal, and be part of that movement, basically.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Are there any other comments on that? Otherwise, I have another. Yeah, go from, please.
I want to say something. I remember that say to Lisa, same situation in Turkey. It's but we don't talk about LGBTQ journalists in Turkey. It's a close identity, and there is no information. And women journalists live this violence, they are lived with more than more. Actually, it's so hard and homophobic in Turkey. It's same.
Yes, unfortunately. I would ask all of you maybe to conclude the round before we go to the questions of our audience. Maybe you can name next to the peer support group other tools that there are to look for, to find in your resources or within the networks that you are connected with or know of, for journalists, for women journalists to reach out to find support and protection. Each of you can start whenever you want.
I'm happy to share those. I think I've posted some of them already, but maybe our colleague needs to post it to the larger group. Maybe I wanted, just because Gulfen mentioned identity, and this is something that it's also close to my heart, because we've seen how traditionally we've never paid enough attention to understanding identity and profile. And identity is something that it's how we defined ourselves, right? How do we describe ourselves, how we see ourselves? Profile is how others perceive us. And these sometimes match, sometimes can be very, very different. But one of the things that we're learning is that in the past, when we assess risk and when we worked on risk assessments, we were always talking about external risks, right? Something, a missile can drop in that part of the world, in that specific city or neighborhood, and we never really paid attention, and we were neglecting the specific risks that are inherent in our identity and profile. So there is, and I think newsrooms, and because we haven't actually seen enough, leading women in managerial roles. So that's kind of like maybe was also enhanced the lack of awareness that there are some risks for me being a journalist, and there are some risks also for me being a woman and how I identify myself, whether I'm part of a non-binary or, etc. Right? So I think that's something that is very important, that we try to understand safety from this identity and profile approach. Having that understanding, I think it could really, really help us to move forward. And I would say, and sorry, I'm just going to add these, that I always try to sort of bring some positivity to it. Of course, there are threats and risks attached to our identity as women journalists. There are many advantages as well. So we should play those. Sometimes it gives us access to voices, to other women that can tell the story, that wouldn't talk to a man, wouldn't talk to our male colleagues, but they can talk to us. So again, I want to bring also some positive there. It's just that awareness of our identity and our profile and how we can play around those to enhance our safety and to protect ourselves.
Elizabeth, it's a little bit hard to us because we have 2,050 member in union, but we cannot touch one by one, so we cannot do anything. The another cities we are living and we are working in Istanbul, and the other cities we cannot touch them. Actually, it's hard for us.
I just also want to say some positivity. Like as a women in journalism, we are not competitors, but allies. So we could support each other, and we also could show our support to other women journalists, not only offer when they are struggling, but also to celebrate their success and when the things are going well. So I think it's really also important. And this is very simple feminist principles that we can use in our everyday life. So yeah, of course, we have a lot of links and a lot of very important projects, but still in our everyday life, we could support each other for me, it work every day.
Thank you, all of you. Maybe one last question.
Lina, I can say something. Sorry about that.
Stefan, please feel free. Your space to do that.
Yeah, thank you. We are actually, I have said that it's, I said in my presentation, it's solidarity, it's most important thing. We try to touch the journalists, women and LGBTQ+, but we give the psychological support in the union. It's very important, I think, because they cannot explain themselves relaxing, but in the psychological support, psychologists in this room, and they can be easy for that. And we have a 3 lawyer in the union, and we can give the law support if they need. Yeah.
If I can add to that, Alina, allow me. This is amazing. I think many years ago, we didn't see that awareness of the need for psychological support, and we see more and more of that. And I want to add for those outside of Turkey, the Journalists in Distress Network, which is a network of several organizations. There are more than a dozen organizations internationally working, providing emergency support to individual journalists that are in an emergency, in a crisis situation. Some of these organizations focus on women and non-binary, and many of them increasingly so. I was part of this group more than a decade ago, and more members of this group are providing currently psychological support. So if you may not, may not know where to go or how to cover financially that support, just so you know, there is a network there that provides grants for those that are in those extreme circumstances. And I'm going to try to add the link to the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. One more last question, maybe about a holistic approach to safety. Maybe any of you would like to speak about that. It's more and more promoted by NGOs like ours to provide women journalists, overall journalists, with a holistic approach to safety and protection. Maybe any of you would like to say some words about that.
I'm happy to go, because this is one of the, I would say, a core issue for the ACOS Alliance, and something that fortunately we've seen its change in the area of safety of journalism, which is, I think in the past we've been very concentrated on physical safety, and gradually we've been more and more aware of the different dimensions of safety. And now more and more we see there is that comprehensive understanding that safety is not just physical, or it's not just digital, it's not just legal and psychosocial, but it's the combination of both. And I always talk about safety as kind of like a fabric, right? And in this fabric, you have all these threads. And each thread, if you start to pull threads, like, oh, I'm going to neglect my digital security, I'm going to neglect my legal security, I'm going to neglect my physical, the fabric becomes weaker and weaker. So in order to have that strong fabric, we need to kind of like bring together all these elements, because they interact with each other. And in a way, it's a natural response, because as I was saying early on, we've seen how these threats have evolved into something that is more complex, and how these are being right now, kind of like used in very clever and sophisticated ways. And it only asks for, a very clever, sophisticated response that kind of like, adheres to that very comprehensive, holistic approach, bringing all these different elements together. There will be one that in some particular case, it's initiated online, or it's initiated in sort of legally, right, with a defamation. But make no mistake, that can jump into any of the other, or can, sort of have certain implications in the other aspects, for sure, psychologically, as we've all acknowledged.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I think it's also very important to consider all the parts of our safety, to think about it, to keep it in mind, and also for organizations to keep them in mind too. Now it would be time for us to proceed to questions from the audience. If there are any, there are two options. Either those who are listening to us, you can write a message in the chat, and I will ask this question to our experts, or you can also unmute yourself and join us in the conversation. We will wait for 1 minute, and if there are no questions, we will conclude our session. But we will still give you some time. Okay, I don't see anyone typing. Technical support, do you see anyone typing? If not, 1 second.
Yes, Elena, we have one question.
Yes, I see now. It's this Q&A part, yes. I will read the question for you. Is there something that should be directed to male journalists, training of a sort, that will allow them to better understand the issues, threats against women journalists, and provide their support? I see the reactions on your faces. I would like to hear from all of you if there is that you have an answer.
Yeah, we try that. We meet in the newsroom we have collective agreement. We said we have a training about women issues or no woman, just violence in this journalism area. There is no man journalist include the meeting because the violence it means just two women journalists interested in. That's why we don't have any issues about violence. We cannot do any violence to other women and LGBT journalists. They think about that, but they don't realize they have these issues, their mind problem. But the man issues, it's kind of like this. I don't do any violence to women or children or LGBT journalists. It's not my problem. They don't think about, I don't do anything, I'm not a problem. My problem is not this. That's why I think it's not just journalist issues, there is public issues. It has to be a start of the education to and then journalism problem. I think it's about education. Yeah.
Lisa, go first.
Okay, so I would say that in Ukraine, we of course have a lot of gender sensitive male journalists. And if I would give advice, I would say just to read, educate yourself, please ask other women journalists how to help. For example, yesterday we had a training about gender equality in Ukrainian media just for editorial teams, and there was 80 participants, 8 8. Yeah, I'm correct in my English. So and half of them was a man. So we see that there's a lot of also men journalists that would like to know more about gender equality, and so in Ukraine, the situation is a little bit different, but of course, still we have a homophobia, we have a gender inequality, and of course, we have some men journalists for whom it is really difficult to understand because of a lot of reasons. So.
I would just like to add 2 thoughts here. One is that, of course, we live in patriarchal society, so this goes beyond journalism. So it's kind of like, but I also think that we would be lying if anyone thinks that the problem that we have is a woman's problem. It's a man's problem as well. We are in the same, we coexist in this profession, we coexist in the world. Therefore, I think they need to be part of the solution, and that we need to engage them as hard as it is. And you know, I hear Gulfem and how difficult it must be to talk with individuals that are not even aware or don't even want to be aware of what's happening in front of their eyes. But definitely, I think we need to find ways to engage everybody. This is too big to just kind of like, you know, make it sectorial, make it just, this is just a group of us that's concerned about these. The second thought is that we've most of our safety training are with men and women, non-binary. We include absolutely everyone. We have done, in partnership with colleagues, some female or women only non-binary trainings, and it's interesting. In some cases, that might be the way to go, but I'm a great advocate for actually mixing groups. I've seen it, you know, for 3 days, you have a mixed group, and the interactions are very interesting because we're talking about these specific threats, and you can see the faces of some of the male colleagues saying like, I wasn't aware you were going through these. Why I didn't know. It's like, you know, and how can I help? That sometimes you see the reaction of kind of like, I wasn't aware, and now what can I do? So if I'm in this situation in the future and I have a woman colleague or I'm interacting with other, what can I do? Or what is in my hands? And I think that awareness is very, very important, how we can work collectively. It's not always possible, I'm aware, but whenever it is, I think it's something that is really, really worth pursuing.
Thank you, everyone. I have one more last question, and then we will end the session. Maybe short responses from all of you who wants to add something. It's from Tina Salame. Tina, I hope I read your name correctly. What organization and policies would help more holistically protect women journalists in the newsroom and in the field and shift the culture more systemically?
I just want to say that I put a link on the chat. We have this like example, a policy on gender equality in media context, also available in English, so you could probably use it in your country also.
My answer is this question. We focus on ILO convention right now. We put all the collective agreement. We put this convention, and we believe that it's very important. But I don't know what's the number in Turkey, journalist number. It's a little, but we have just 2,500 members. We said join the union, and you can be strong then right now, because you cannot, if you don't have social security or Other things you cannot include the part of the union. We just say join the union, and you can show the collective agreement, and you can understand what's the important the union to be strong.
Maybe at my end, I'm going to add as well. This is such an important question for us because we understand that we need to change our culture. We need to create this culture of safety that doesn't leave anyone behind. No matter who you are, no matter your identity, no matter your profile, you should be part of this culture of safety. And newsrooms have a big responsibility. And I was referring to this when I was talking about the, institutional backing. It makes such a huge difference when you have a newsroom that is aware and is embedding in these policies and safety policies and protocols, is embedding that identity and profile approach. It's sensitive towards the fact that you, because of your identity, will have specific threats. And it makes room for these. It's accounting for these. It's not, these protocols are not done with the basis that everybody will have the same challenges. No, we're all different. So for us, it's really important that we try to educate these news managers and editors. We see editors and news managers as agents of change, because really, if they come into the conversation, they can really change the fabric of how we're doing things. And we've created, together with WANIFRA, what we call the Editors Safety Hub. We've done the first online course called the Fundamentals of Safe Commissioning. It doesn't necessarily have a focus on gender per se explicitly, but it has been created by women and non-binary safety trainers and advisory. So what we did is incorporate it all across this platform. So it's not even a special chapter. It's part of what we need to do, right? I'm going to try to put the link there, Alina, if you can share it with the group. But it's part of how we can educate those that are in powerful positions to change that culture, to develop those policies and protocols in a way that, again, don't leave anyone behind.
Yeah, if you could please share this link, I think it would be useful, really.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your contributions, for your thoughts, for your work. It's incredibly important what you're doing. And in the very end, I would like to say, I hope at some point there will be less need to talk about these topics over and over and over again. But until it's needed, we will continue talking about it and address the need to protect women journalists, and protect our rights. Thank you for joining us for the webinar. It was great to spend some time with you.